The period of the 1830s was a time of transition for a lot of the military arms in the world. The British went to the cap-lock Brunswick rifle, which featured unique two-groove rifling that took a special ball that had a belt on it.
The British actually standardized the idea of a military use rifle fairly early on, starting with the pattern 1776, which is just essentially a standardized Jaeger rifle. This is further codified right around the turn of the century with the pattern 1800 Baker rifle. And the Baker is iconic. But by the 1830s, the Baker is really becoming old. And what they come up with and what they adopt is actually a design that's already been fielded in Germany by the Duke of Brunswick. And that's why it's known today as the Brunswick rifle.
The rifle itself was interesting in that rather than using just a plain round ball and a patch, it had two deep grooves down the barrel, and the ball itself had a ring cast around the bullet that mechanically fit into these grooves. This was not a new device. However, it was the first time it was really used to any great degree in a military arm.
The main point about the Brunswick rifle was in its rifling. After you loaded the powder, then you put this ball with its greased calico patch. That had to go all the way back in two grooves, unobstructed, so that when it came out and imparted that spin. Now, a problem with that is that with powder fouling, once that gets fouled in there, it's very difficult to get that belt to fit.
When the Brunswick is tested against the Baker in trials, it's actually shown that this unique rifling arrangement is just a little bit more accurate at longer ranges. And shorter ranges, they're about equivalent, but that's enough for the British military, and they adopt it. The first model of Brunswick rifle uses a backlock action that you'll see on a lot of sporting rifles of this time period. You'll see it on military rifles. The French, in particular, adopt this backlock action on the 1842 Minié rifle that's coming later. And the British decide they don't really like it. It makes the wrist of the stock a lot weaker. And so in order to strengthen the overall design, they go to a second model of the Brunswick rifle, and it features a traditional side plate lock. And in fact, the profile of this side plate lock is very reminiscent of what we'll see later on the pattern 1853 Enfield.
Interestingly enough, the Russians took a look at this Brunswick and they thought, this is pretty cool. So they developed their own version. And it's virtually identical to the British Brunswick, with the major difference being that it has a more sophisticated rear sight. It was not a long-lived system because there were lots of advances being made in military firearms at that period. Consequently, it had about a 10-year lifespan in active use. However, it was used much longer, both in the sporting field and by British militia.